Hello and welcome to IST 412's presentation of Alpha Care. We are Group 4, which consists of Kenny Sofranko, Adam Smith, and Katherine Sarmiento. Alpha Care is a product created by ATZ Healthcare to provide a new service for the healthcare domain. The goal of this assignment was to build a system capable of holding records for hospital patients and allow doctors and patients to access them as needed, while also allowing doctors to alter and update the records. Over the development of this application, the main goals were to develop a system that allows doctors to receive patient files, read the files, update them, or delete the files altogether. They also had the ability to send the files if needed. However, when creating this application, we realized that this is very confidential information and that doctors should have proper access to the confidential information. The login method was created in order for users of the system to ensure that no files were being seen by unauthorized personnel. The AlphaCare tool was created to allow safe access to patients' files by doctors and patients themselves. The system allows for authorized doctors to update, edit, and delete files. It also allows for patients to manage and store files as needed. For our system, we used 4 major use cases, the first being edit patient diagrams. For the edit patient use case, we began by implementing CRUD, which is create, read, update, and delete, and we developed more from there. The purpose of this use case in the application itself is to allow doctors to access patient files in order to update and alter them when needed. The doctor using the software can create the patient record. From there, they get the record and add to it if needed. Alternately, the user can access the patient record and delete parts of the document altogether. Once that was completed, the file will update and show the more recent status of the file as the doctor intends. While the edit patient diagram use case is pretty straightforward, the retrieve patient records, however, are a bit more complex. Through this system, the user of the software will retrieve the patient's past records and medical information. The user will search the patient in the given system. The system will then search the interface and show user suggestions for them to select. The interface will take the option the user selected and finally give the user the match that it is found after being sent back through the interface, and the user is shown the proper result. Once that use case was completed, we moved on to receive patient records. In this use case, the relevant information is passed between interfaces in order to receive the most up-to-date information on the patient from the current database. When the user interacts with the system, they first need to log on in order to access the records. They are then authenticated by the system. Once logged in, they will search through the existing records to find a copy of the patient's current record. Once received, the doctor can use the edit patient diagram to alter or update the file. Unlike the retrieve patient record, this system is intended for doctors' use, while the retrieve system is meant for use of the patient themselves. Moving on, the use diagram for send patient records is closely related to the receiving patient record use case. However, the send patient record use case largely acts through the doctor view controller. This use case required the doctor to log in and verify themselves with the username and password, as the patient records are highly confidential. It is also critical that the record is safe. Once the doctor authenticates themselves, they will have the ability to send the patient records to the record network so whoever needs it can access it with proper authentication and have been allowed access. Lastly, we are going to discuss the export of personal patient records. This use case reflects the supplemental feature allowing patients to export their individual personal health records. This use case is implemented on the patient view and controlled using the patient view controller. Ideally, a fully featured implementation of such a feature within the context of a professional operation would carry HIPAA warnings along with the export process. However, our implementation establishes the framework for this functionality.
Hello, my name's Kenny, and I'm going to be walking you through the software demonstration. Just a few quick notes. This is for the program called AlphaCare. It's meant to be a prototype for an electronic health record system implemented in the context or within the context of a large hospital operation. in an effort to let doctors keep records more efficiently and let those records be aggregated in a more efficient manner as well throughout that operation and others that need to get those records also. So here we go. The basic breakdown of our design philosophy is that it was done in the MVC, model view controller paradigm or architecture, however you want to refer to that. As you will see, each of these views here, represented by an fxml file, has a corresponding controller, obviously, and then the models that they manipulate with instantiated classes on each of their instances. And what's interesting about our application is this AlphaCare app kind of acts as the facade of the main application. It kind of just passes its instance in order to maintain references to the same memory location as to not duplicate data or, reference stagnant data. So that is that as far as the MVC architecture is concerned, and I guess we'll get right down to running the program and showing you how it works. So here we go. You already heard the use cases described to you or summarized for you, so I'll just get right to it. The first use case is the edit patient diagrams or edit patient records, however you want to refer to that, and we'll just use this test user that we got cooked up here that kind of accesses everything. And let's say a doctor wants to log in to take patient records, and he sees that he has his patient Theon Greyjoy here, and he is going to set him as the active patient because he's his next appointment. So we'll set him there, and we'll set the active patient. Now, normally, obviously, this list would be a lot more populated in a real hospital, but this is just a test. And we get a little alert here to tell you that it was successful. You can go through here, set the details of the exam. I'm just going to put in random data just to show you how it works. These would obviously be much more relevant numbers. We'll just say that he's having headaches. Now we're going to create a new session, and the new session was created within the patient's records, and if you want to see how that's broken down, you can refer to the model classes. They're done in nested fashion. Like each record repo has a list of users, which has a list of sessions, which has a list of notes, and that way it allows for multiple instantiations and references, and also multiple sessions like I just illustrated you right there. So the notes can then be taken. We can put in whatever we want here. We'll just put in hello just to show you how it works. Now, normally this would be populated by the previous session notes as it says here, but since none of these have any records yet, just to illustrate kind of a dry run for you, we're going to show you how that works now. We're going to add to the session, and anything that he types will be added there. This one's obviously not editable, as this bottom one is, and we'll just say this is a test. Again, add it to the session notes, and you can type whatever there. Obviously, that's at the doctor's discretion. And then when he's done, he can just end the session, and the session will be added to the object. Now, you'll probably notice some little notes here on the terminal output. We kind of did those for both viewer and for our own help, just to kind of offer some troubleshooting, theoretical breakpoints, if you will. But anyway, that's how to create a patient record, and those records will be persistent in the system, and you'll see that here. So we'll log out here. Yes, we want to log out. Now, this whole part of the functionality obviously would not be in the same login portal as it is here. They would be on two totally different versions of the app, but since we're only working on this for the time frame that we figured this was better for testing context. We'll log in here for the patient records, and we're going to view the records. Now, we're showing you what would happen when Theon Greyjoy logs in. The guy who you saw the doctor just created a new record here, and that's what we're seeing in this list view. And we want to click on that record list, and we're going to view those records. Now, that's just an example of one of our other use cases, retrieving the patient records in a way from the patient's point of view, and also another one of our use cases, export records. Now, obviously, in the context of a professional organization, this would have the appropriate disclaimers about HIPAA privacy and so on. But just to show you how it's possible, we can do whatever we need to here. We'll just say test, and I'm going to put this on my desktop, and we'll save that. And there you go. Ignore these warnings. They're just talking about dual implementations of certain packages from my Java development kit. as you can see here, kind of the export functionality, and I will show you how that turns out on the, let's see here, where is that? Here we go. As you can see right here, that's just kind of a implementation of that particular functionality for a patient to get his records out of the system. Now, if we want to illustrate the other use cases in terms of retrieving patient records and also sending patient records between institutions, you can refer to this right here, what I'm about to show you, the personnel login. Now, if we want to upload patient records, see, we have the same type of screen, and this is all very rudimentary. It would obviously be implemented in a much more fashion appropriate for its context in whatever organization we're talking about. But let's say we want that same patient that we just created a record for. There's that record that we created in the first screen. We'll go to select a record to upload that. Now, you would have to look within the model class to see exactly where that record goes, but that's just a little a little warning to let you know that everything is going as planned. And see, these guys actually don't have any records, and that's why I think we're getting some exceptions there, but you can ignore that because it really doesn't matter. And that is that. Now, downloading patients from the server, these will be representative of remote patients. Now, these are just pre-existing records to show you. That's kind of ironic. There was one created in there before on this page. But anyway, we can select a patient with existing records, and also, and this would be, like I said, on the personnel page, to download records from another institution. And you can download those records, download all the records, and so on and so forth. And then they will show, they will show in the appropriate windows. So that is, I believe, all of the use cases that were covered there. Let's see. Edit patient diagrams or records. Yes. Retrieve patient records. I'll show you that right now too. Now this, it would be the process for if we wanted to retrieve the records that were there. And I'll show you this again. And remember, we retrieved the records from when I hit the download the records, and now you see the records in the list here. That's just kind of telling you what we were talking about before. Retrieving external records from a totally sovereign system that now appear in our list that was originally only populated by these 3 patients. And here's the one right here. And also, if you'll, this is a way that we can search patients. We forgot to show you this before, but here it is. Let's say we want to search for a patient with the last name of download. We'll search for last name, and you'll see that here. And there is Mr. Download. And we can, go along, if we were the doctor, go along just as I showed you before. But since we're running short on time here, that is the extent of that use case for retrieve patient records. Receiving patient records I showed you in the employee portal. Sending patient records, same deal. And exporting personal patient records to text files, we illustrated that as well. So that's 5 use cases. 4.5, I guess, however you want to talk about it. But that's that, and thank you for watching this demo. I'm sorry I couldn't explain that to you in shorter fashion, but there it is. Thanks, guys.